All right, which sport is better? What are the two sports this time? They are sports that can include great physical flexibility. Does not necessarily mean that they do, though. Speaking from experience. So the first one is cheerleading. And I'm going to include in that. So cheerleading can be done both as its own sport and as part of other sports. A sport competing might not actually need cheerleaders, even if there is a cheer team that performs at halftime or gives cheers throughout. Yeah, and then that's the first sport. The second sport is gymnastics. Cheerleading or gymnastics? Which sport is better? This might actually be a fast one, kind of like the match before this. So this is match 7. There's only 8 matches in this first round, the prelims, preliminary round. So we're getting down to the last 2 matches. So, which sport is better? What's my experience? So, cheering in the formal sense of like a cheer team. I went to a cheer camp as a kid, and we cheered at a game, and we had like pom-poms and dress code, maybe, is a way of putting it. And then I cheered in my various other sports I have participated in. Chants or cheers, however you want to call them, are pretty typical in the sporting world, at least the world I was raised in. So like soccer and swim team especially. Swim team, our chants / cheers were very, very ritualized. Even more so than the cheering I did at cheer camp. So I was one of the teams where we did that. It was over a decade I was on that swim team. And so yeah, so in the cheer as part of a team, not as a cheer team itself, that's been a much broader experience. Gymnastics, I did very shortly in a gymnasium, and yeah, it was very short-lived. We had a trampoline in the backyard, and gymnastics was also one that we kind of did at birthday parties for whatever reason, like when I was super young. And we had a trampoline in the backyard. I got back into, it's not gymnastics, but it addresses flexibility. I did Pilates later in life and got back some of the flexibility I had when I was a kid and kind of lost for a while. And we had the trampoline for a good while. Yeah, and so so that's kind of my experience with both of those, like very brief kind of experience with the formal one. Oh, the gymnasium. What did I do at the gymnasium? Trampoline, bars, and floor. I don't think I did rings. I think I got very unhappy when I had to do rings, if I'm recalling that correctly. So I didn't do rings. And so those are these two. I just start with gymnastics. I have ran into too many gymnasts who decide they want to show off or do like a backflip or a cartwheel or something and use it as a form of showing off in a social setting unprompted, and then say like, or imply that they are better than the rest of us who don't do that. It doesn't mean we can't do that. It just means we have the self-restraint not to do that in a social setting and then put down other people, kind of thing. So there's a little bit of extreme arrogance with too many gymnasts. Not all gymnasts by any means, but too many in my life experience do stuff like that, to be like, that's a good culture? No, clearly there's some sort of build-up within the culture of the sport itself that makes that kind of thing happen on a social level, versus like with basketball or soccer or something and sports like that, a lot of the time people are really supportive. They're like, you're interested in it? Come try it out. Versus kind of with gymnastics, there are too many gymnasts who are completely unsupportive and just show off, as opposed to be like, oh, you might actually be interested in this, or stop to think that, oh, other people might be able to do this too. They don't choose to show off, kind of. And like, if you're talking with people and like, people are like, it's like good vibes kind of thing, then that's not a problem. But it's like when it becomes like a form of put down doing gymnastics in social settings, that's kind of, to me, it kind of comes off as like perhaps there's a broader toxic culture here as part of this sport, gymnastics, especially when it's more than one gymnast that this has happened with, kind of thing, in a social setting. Cheerleading, there's a bit of, and this kind of came up in a social setting in college, not college, high school, well, in kind of college. Like, do we really need a cheer team? I think part of why I don't necessarily attend some games, like I used to go and watch soccer and games and they didn't have cheer teams, and I really liked that because then you could kind of talk about what's happened in the games and think about, okay, what might happen like at halftime or something, and like talk to my friends about what's going to happen or what our guesses or how might like this go and stuff like that. And when there are cheerleaders yelling, it becomes hard to talk and hear the people that I'm talking with. And so I would actually say that cheer is a reason I do not attend sporting events. It does not let me enjoy the sport I am there to watch. There are cheer competitions, and so like if I really wanted to watch cheer, I would go to a cheer competition. I'm not going to go to a football game to watch the cheerleaders, kind of thing. I'm not the biggest fan of like halftime shows. I like, if I'm going to watch a sport, it'd be great if I had some idea. If it's a sport I don't know, find out what's going on. Like I have a use for that halftime slot, just by being a spectator. I don't need to spectate something else. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with this game, that kind of thing. And so for both of me, for the single me, for both of these sports, I'm going, they are real sports. There are cultures around them. The cheerleading thing, it's not as common as gymnastics to have people like just start doing like, oh, I look good when I do this, or I know how to do this. There is and even in my cheer camp, there's a toxic culture that kind of forms around how one looks and peer pressure and that kind of stuff. And that can snowball to toxic levels for those involved in cheer. And I think if that was not, and that can happen in gymnastics too, the emphasis on looks. Gymnastics and cheerleading by no means, like they wear far more clothing than some sports like swimming, if people aren't wearing like the long or partial sleeves faskins, or water polo or beach volleyball. Like these are sports, it's not like fencing, but they're by no means like wearing the least amount of clothing, but they are on display. So like with swimming and water polo, we're in the water, so that doesn't mean we're on some display. And I think with these and the experience I've had with, by no means all, but with too many from each of these sports, people either peer pressuring others in the sport or being peer pressured from others in the sport. And this, like, to me, that's sad. On some level, it's like the structure of these sports are failing to keep those involved healthy, kind of thing. Because health is social, mental, and physical. And by focusing only on looks and promoting a certain image as being what one needs to look like, that tends to correlate with negative mental health, especially from those pushing that image of what one needs to look like, and social health. If people are being peer pressured and bullied and stuff like that, that's like zero social health. So then maybe they're in the best fitness of their life, like in terms of their physical body, but that can lead to like zero health and wellness socially and mentally. And then that means if we're viewing it as the triangle of social, mental, and physical, then they're really only 33% fit or healthy or well. And so for me, just based on my life experience, I hope it changes. I hope I meet some I have met some and I have friends who are like really good cheerleaders in gymnastics. I hope that the trend of the too many of these taking their sports and using it as like a weapon in social settings, I hope that changes. And I hope both of these sports become less toxic on a team and sport level. So for me, because of that toxicity, I'm actually going to have to go with neither sport in this round. Neither sport wins for me. They're both eliminated. This is a double elimination. Yeah. So, which sport is better, cheerleading or gymnastics? Gymnastics or cheerleading? Neither sport is better. Both sports lose. There is no winner for this match.